Hey everyone, RetroVival here, and I wanted to quickly hop on and talk a little about that Nintendo Direct that we just got. It was a beefy one for sure, with a mix of new announcements, updates, remakes and ports for Switch 1 and a ton more for Switch 2. There was a ton of things that definitely piqued my interest, so I really wanted to come on here and talk about them. But there was also some more questionable moments from the Direct and with information we found out after the Direct. So, let's get into it. So we started off with a portion dedicated entirely to the Super Mario Bros. 40th anniversary, and we actually got some pretty great reveals. The next Mario movie is going to be based off of Mario Galaxy, and just like the previous movie, the animation looks absolutely gorgeous. The original cast is returning, but we've no word yet on new characters like Rosalina getting casted. The Mario movie was a pleasant surprise to me. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it nearly as much as I did, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with the next one. The Super Mario Galaxy movie led us into our first big game announcement. We're getting a double pack of Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 for Nintendo Switch 1 and 2. Strange. Could have sworn we got one already. It's almost like someone removed it or something, I don't know. The Galaxy games are a ton of fun, so it's great to see them both finally playable on modern hardware again. Both games are available individually, which is great for owners of the 35th Anniversary Collection who don't want to splash out on Galaxy 1 again. But honestly, it's gonna sting buying Galaxy 2 on its own anyway. I normally try to keep things quite positive on the channel, but I don't want to just tiptoe over this topic, so bear with me. The pricing of these games is Nintendo at their worst in my opinion. These games individually are what the games probably should have cost combined. The bundle costs €70, while the individual games cost 40. There's no other way to describe this than saying it sucks, and it's just not consumer friendly in the slightest. These games were once available to buy digitally for €10 each on Wii U's eShop, but a bump in resolution and a few extra pages in a digital book somehow adds on an extra €30 to an €18 and €15 game. Nintendo have such a loyal fan base, and it's things like this that muddy that relationship and send more and more people to emulation and piracy, which is what Nintendo is usually trying their best to fight against. I appreciate the ability to buy them separately, but just be fair with your pricing. It just seems like you're taking advantage of your fan base so much with stuff like this. Now, let's get back to more positive stuff. We then get to Mario Tennis Fever, which normally I wouldn't be too bothered with the sports games, but the adventure mode in this game is what caught my attention because it actually looks like a ton of fun. Mario, Luigi, Peach, Waluigi and Wario all get turned into their baby forms and have to, by the looks of it, train to become as powerful as they once were, at tennis at least. Donkey Kong is back on babysitter duty, which just seems to be his new thing. And then we got Mario Wonder getting a Switch 2 version, which I was actually quite surprised about because I'm pretty sure they've already updated it for Switch 2. It's also getting exclusive DLC that adds a bunch of family game, Mario Party style minigames to the game. I'm not sure if that DLC is exclusive entirely to the Switch 2 or if it just comes bundled in. Hopefully it's available for owners of the Switch 1 version as well, because I don't see why it would be exclusive. Then the final announcement for this part was a lovely looking game called Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, which sees Yoshi entering the pages of a magical book to uncover the stories within. When he enters the book, the style changes from the usual 3D Mario style to this really gorgeous looking 2D animated style. It's a borderline Winnie the Pooh looking art style. I thought it looked really charming, so I'll be keeping an eye out for that one for sure. And that marked the end of the Mario 40th anniversary section of the presentation. I don't know if they're planning more announcements for a later date, hopefully they are. I would love to see them bring back Mario 64 and Sunshine, just back to the eShop, make them available again indefinitely, like they just shouldn't be removed again. So one of the first big announcements was the release time frame for Tomodachi Life, which is releasing on Switch and Switch 2 in spring 2026. I know a fair few people who are very excited for this one, so I hope my friends James and John are very happy with this one. We then got to see some Switch 2 specific stuff that saw the likes of Mortal Kombat Kollection, Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is fantastic, Hades 2, and a shadow drop of a game called Linked Banner of the Spark. It's a roguelike RPG that I actually thought looked pretty cool, and I always appreciate a cheeky little shadow drop, so hopefully it goes well for them. Next up though was the big one for me, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. I loved the second Hyrule Warriors game, Age of Calamity, because of the link to Breath of the Wild, no pun intended, and then just the fun fan-servicey story that it told. But Age of Imprisonment is actually a fully canon story to the main games, expanding upon some of Zelda's backstory that we've seen glimpses of throughout Tears of the Kingdom. I really enjoyed the gameplay and story of the previous game too, even if it wasn't canon, so the idea that we're actually going to get one now that's fully connected to the main story of those two games is really exciting. I've really enjoyed a lot of the lore established in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, so anything to add on more to that I'm happy to get. Dragon Quest VII is getting a lovely looking remake that actually has a lighting style that reminds me of how Nintendo did Link's Awakening, as well as what Square Enix are doing with the HD 2D stuff. I've never played 7, so it's going to give me a great excuse to finally give it a go. It was quite funny though, because as soon as it started, it immediately had me thinking Dragon Quest, but I thought it was going to be a new Builders game. Switch Online is getting Virtual Boy games, as well as a full-on replica of it that you can put your Switch 1 or 2 into and recreate playing the games on the original system. I'm assuming you can still play it on the TV too, like they showed it off in a video and it looks fine to play. But what I'm kind of curious about is that they've announced a cheaper cardboard version. So can owners of Nintendo Labo use the VR Labo kit to play it too? I know that might seem like a random thing to say, but it would make a lot of sense and it would be pretty cool if they allowed people to use it. Fatal Frame 2 is getting a remake and it looks great. Metroid Prime 4 has full-on open areas where you can drive around on a motorbike. I'm hoping these areas don't feel too barren though, because all they really showed off of it pretty much was a pretty bare bones looking desert, and then a more linear looking sequence where you're like jumping off a ramp. I feel like there's no middle ground on this one though. This is either going to be an amazing inclusion that we're all going to love, or it's probably going to be everyone's least favourite part of the game. I'm personally hoping it's an amazing inclusion, but I don't know. The regular bit of gameplay they showed off looked absolutely fantastic, so I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm still really hoping they release Prime 2 and 3, just not for 70 quid. And then the big surprise for me was the Donkey Kong Bonanza DLC that adds in DK Island as an area you can explore, as well as a kind of a time trial collectible mode. I'm still making my way through the main game, but I'll definitely look into it when the time comes. Bonanza has been such a fun game, so I'm hoping it's not the last of the new content they plan on adding to the game. Hopefully they add in some stuff with free updates too. So this one made me chuckle. Pokemon is somehow after basically patenting almost all of the turn-based RPG genre to a degree. And apparently this is to protect against games like Palworld ripping off their games, and then they proceed to announce a bloody Animal Crossing rip-off looking game. It's still Nintendo, I know, but the irony is just crazy. I think the game looks pretty charming. I'm more so curious about its pricing though. I think this looks more like a 30 to 40 euro game rather than a full price one, but we'll have to wait and see. Legend ZA had a DLC announced before the game has released, which is always a crappy choice in my opinion. Even if a DLC is planned, unless it's free, just wait like a month after the game releases to start announcing stuff like that. They're already on thin ice in my opinion from the previous games, so maybe try and build back a bit of good faith. I don't know, I've just never liked this practice. The one thing I did think looked quite cool was the Raichu design, because it seems like it could be pulling from the original second evolution of Pikachu, Gorachu, which got cut before the original games released on Game Boy. I'm all for revisiting old Pokemon designs that never made the final cut, so I'm really happy to see that included. So we've seen more games like Danganronpa, Dynasty Warriors, Monster Hunter Stories and more get shown off. Persona 3 Reload is coming on October 23rd, and in my opinion they dropped one of the biggest announcements of the show, if not the biggest in terms of first party support. Resident Evil Requiem is coming to Nintendo Switch 2 day and date with the other consoles and PC. This is in my opinion one of the biggest announcements so far for Nintendo Switch 2. I know it might seem weird, I know it's a game that's already coming to other systems, but this is a big deal. We're getting a massive console and PC release day and date. The game did look noticeably lower quality, mainly with stuff like hair in the trailer, but it still looked bloody good on Switch 2. Getting a big game like that the same day as other systems and not delayed 6 months later is a fantastic step for Nintendo, and hopefully we'll see more stories like that follow. Along with Requiem, on that same day we're getting the gold editions of 7 and 8, which on the Switch 1 were cloud streaming options. I'm really hoping with the current trilogy out of the way, we'll see 2, 3 and 4 remake all make their way onto the Switch 2 natively as well. And hopefully we'll get some physical copies that have the games entirely on the cartridges as well, see releases too. The show ended with the big announcement of Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, and it looked great. It's a franchise I've always wanted to get into, but I always feel like I'd just be terrible at it. But it looks very good. So overall, I thought it was actually a pretty good direct. It was a nice mix of AAA titles, indie games, and first-party stuff. My games of the show had to be Resident Evil 9. Getting that properly on the Switch 2 along with 7 and 8 is such a big deal. Finally getting a release date for Metroid Prime 4 releasing on December 4th. Dragon Quest VII and the Fatal Frame 2 remake are two that I'm looking forward to a lot as well. I know my friend Bundicott is very excited for the Fatal Frame remake, as you can see here. I think choices regarding the pricing on Galaxy, along with apparently the content to value ratio of the Donkey Kong DLC, put a bit of a damper on some of the Direct for me now in hindsight, but I'm still quite excited for a lot of the games. Let me know in the comment section below, what did you think of the Direct? Are you picking up any of these games on Switch 1, 2 or another system? I'd love to know. Thanks so much for joining me on this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.